all these people are very self-motivated. They not only take care of their own families, they try to take care of the community. So this is a very selected group, and therefore not the best representation of the community at large. As you know, it's a very good. So most of the times we end up having families as our members, more or less, and not so much students, right? Maybe we need to do something about that. But you know, now students, we did try to reach, like some of our like Holi and India Day. So they do come and perform in some. So some we help in every way. I put them in touch with the lawyers and other people, and then we offered them also accommodations. Fortunately, they didn't have to use it; they knew somebody. People have vacuum cleaners and other things in that way they are not TVs and all those things. Right? Also helping them out with language barrier, those things. Whatever the forms they have to fill in. So that's what we were doing.
From my perspective, might be really unique because I was born and raised here. So being of Indian descent, and the schools that I had gone to, the majority of my schools were in Mandarin. I went to Mandarin Oaks, Darnell, and Stanton. The demographic tended to be the middle class Caucasian. And I tended to sort of be the token Indian kid, the token cultural kid. So I ended up distancing myself from my Indian culture. Growing up, and you can vouch for that, I wasn't very involved with the Indian community other than what I was sort of told to do by my parents, if you will. And I appreciate that now as I'm older, that I still have that touch. But as I was growing up, being so involved in the middle class American culture, I sort of distanced myself because they want to be accepted by their peers, and their peers are going to be Americans. Their peers aren't necessarily going to be Indian kids. Now there's a large growing population of young Indian children, and you see that at Stanton, and you see that in a lot of the magnet schools where they sort of band together and they have that commonality between them. So it might depend on the school, it might depend on the kid. For me personally, I didn't want anything to do with Indians growing up because there were no other Indians.
2 years old, so almost he is raised here, So I'm happy that the education system allows students to get the leadership and communication skills made very well. If I recall my past, and we used to be always in the back, we never came front. So genetically my son has that character still, that he doesn't go very much up front to do things, but the level of his communication, his understanding and coordination, everything has been developed what we could not get when we came. That's the happiness I have, that my son has grown as a leadership environment, and he has balance. He's volunteering at Red Cross, so he has a balance of American and Indian culture. Food habit also.
That kids initially, ethnic kids, they try to run away from their culture as far as possible as kids, and then as they reach 20, 21, 22, that age, then they realize they start understanding. They have the maturity to understand, the good parts of it, and then they come back. So I'm actually seeing that in my own kids. I have a 13-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. So the same thing. They don't want to eat Indian food. They want to eat, macaroni and cheese and whatever else, right? They don't want to speak our language.
In our country, teacher is teacher. So whatever teacher says, that is the most. But here, education is business. You are getting paid, so you are just here for transferring knowledge. That responsibility we have, that the most current, updated knowledge we have to transfer. That's our role as a educator here. But in our country, no matter how much money a teacher gets or how much money you give as a student, teacher is still teacher. And here, when I came as postdoc, and it was a great cultural difference, because professor is sitting like Jitesh is sitting there, a student is sitting here, and whole feet is on the table, is facing towards the professor. In our country, it's impossible. None of the students will sit in the chair in front of professor and putting the feet on professor's face, no matter what it is. So it's a great,
the cultures are different.
great cultural shock. But now we are used to, and we try to develop students so that they feel. I'm teaching for like 10 years now, so we motivate students to respect teachers and argument, but not in a rude way. So I think that we are getting into that. Students understand the Indian culture and they take a good part of
Like for
that.
example, in India, the examination, what you write in your examination paper, is the only thing that counts, right? That determines your grade for the whole year, right? Here, there are homework, behavior in class, timeliness, this, that, this, anything. And what you write in your examination paper is probably 20-30% at most.
Right.
So it took. I'm
But
still
the
not
point,
used
the
to it.
problem is with college, you need more than just academics.
Yeah.
You need sports, you need volunteering, you need arts, you need something else. And the Indian culture doesn't stress that. The Indian culture, like you said, is what's on that exam. How is it to get into upper level Indian academy, upper level Indian schools, college? There's an entrance exam, right?
Yeah,
There's like a national entrance exam, similar to the SAT, but binding, and that's just it.
Oh yeah, and it's like, you're in 98.9 percentile and you're in, you're 98.7 percentile and you're out. So it was like very, very extremely competitive. So, and it was all
But
about what you.
it's objective to my point.
Yeah.
There's no subjective component to it at all. It's very objective. It's the numbers. Whereas here, applications admissions have interviews. They have, tell me about how you feel about a certain subject. There's sort of this intangible component to it that the culture does not necessarily stress.
A lot of our students face a lot of things, negative and positive in school. I raised my three, he's the youngest of my baby, and I have two other ones, I don't want to say negative thing, and something, he have a problem with the teacher, he was top in his class, and he had to go to Town Cookman, right? And he got selected, but the teacher said, oh, he's from India. She minus 1 point, and she did not select him, and he came home and we find out and so I had to go back to the teacher, talk with the teacher and principal. So I picked up the phone, I called the supervisor who was 35 schools in charge, and so teacher apologized, from us as the principal too. I'm sorry, I shouldn't do this. He got 100% mark in his class, being Indian. She took 1 mark and she didn't select him to go to Donna Cookman. Fine, she did. So a lot of our culture, our students, they face some negative things. I don't know if you have experienced, not about my time. When we came here for 30, 40 years back, a lot of students are suffering, a lot of negative things in the school. Now it's much
As a
better.
parent, not as my child has, at least in my opinion, has no disadvantage. That's my personal opinion, that I don't think there is a real disadvantage for them.
No,
but
no.
as a parent we do, in the sense that we didn't grow up in this. Kids had the same thing. I put English as a second language. It's true actually. I did not teach my kids English. I never taught them actually. They just picked it up on their own, right? So yeah, in the form I filled out, first language is Hindi, right? And then they think that that means the kid doesn't speak English. And the kid actually speaks better English than they speak. Kids are born here, but for the first 3 years of their life, we are the only ones they interacted with, so they spoke our language. That's it. And then they watch TV, and then they start picking up, and then they played with others. So by the time they got to school, they were speaking better English than they spoke Hindi. But the truth of the matter is that their first language is Hindi. So that's what I wrote. And then they said, now you must go through a special. I educate them on the fact that a child who is 4 years old can successfully speak 2 languages without any problem and switch between them without. I tried to explain that to the teacher who was just following whatever the process they have been given. So then I had to, first I spoke to the teacher, then the student counselor, then the principal, and I said, I don't mind him taking whatever extra, but it's a waste of your money, your time, and our time also. It's you can use that resources to actually help a child who really needs it. And then I took my son to the principal and said, test him or talk to him or do whatever you need to do. It's not. I'm not going to change. They said, change on fill the form and put that's your first language. I said, no, I'm not going to rely. Hindi is their first language. For the first 3 years, they did not speak English. But now they do. I'm not going to change that. They said, but our policies require you have to do. I said, no, change the policy. Because you have there has to be, but in the end, if they had forced me to my kid to take, I would have gone with it. But I said, you're wasting your resources.
Older son was in 5th grade when he came here, so I think he's better off than my younger one, because my younger one was just going into 2nd grade when he came here. So obviously he's lost touch with the mother tongue, because now when they go to school, I think it's important for us to converse with them in English, so they get a better hold, and then we start speaking English at home, so that kind of leaves